right, so here's the TI-84. When you want to input, so when you want to do stuff like regression, or you want to graph points on a TI-84, and like I say, I mean, this is one of those things you guys are definitely going to want to get one of these. I mean, you'll be using next year. You'll use it a bunch in class, and beyond that, you'll just continue to use it. In college, they'll expect you to have it. So you might as well just get one and get used to it and learn how to use it well. So here's what you do. In order to input data, and I think, actually, hang on a second. I think there's a way I can even record. Let me try one thing here. I think I can even record the keystrokes here, and I'll put them on the notes. Okay, yeah, it's doing it, okay? So this is the home screen. You have to go to the stat screen. I haven't done this in a while. I got to kind of find this stuff. Let's see. You guys see stat? Oh, there it is right there, stat. So we push the stat button to go to the stat screen. Okay, it takes us here. We want to edit a list. So we're going to hit edit. What we're going to end up doing is just creating tables like this. So I hit enter, and then it gives me all these different lists I can use. Well, I'm just going to make L1, list 1 is going to be my input variable, L2 for list 2 will be my dependent variable. And I'll just enter these values. So why don't you just work along with me if you got your calculator out. So 12 through 18. Okay, so we got all the way up through 18. Now I'm going to scoot over to the next list and add these decimals. So there it is. I got all the data in there. Now if I want to see this on the screen, I'm going to go up to the y equals menu, and I'm going to go ahead and clear this out. I don't want to have any equations in there. So now nothing is graphed and none of the plots are turned on. I'm going to go up and turn on plot 1. I'm going to hit enter to turn that on, and then I'm going to go to stat plot. Okay, I'm going to hit second F1 and go into stat plot, and look, it's got plot 1 turned on, and it's already set up to be a scatter plot. If I wanted to do something else, like I'm just going to go ahead and go into this, I'm going to hit enter. It's turned on. There's a variety of different plots that I could do, right? So I could do, that's the scatter plot. This is a, connects the dots. There's a, what do you call those things? Histogram. There's box and whisker plots. And then this is like a frequency plot. But the only one you'll probably ever use all year is that first one, scatter plot. Okay, the X list. What are my X variables? L1, right? That was my first list. What are my Y variables? What's the Y list? That was list 2. For the mark, it defaults to this little square. You definitely want to do that. You don't want to pick the point because they're too hard to see. So just use the little squares, and you can pick whatever color you want. That doesn't matter. Okay, so now I'm going to get out of there. If I want to graph this thing, if I just hit graph, I'm going to be at the mercy of whatever my last window size was. So you don't want to hit graph. You want to size the window so you can see your data. Remember yesterday in Desmos, how there was that little button available that said zoom data? That's available on here also. If I go into the zoom menu, right down there it says zoom stat. That's what we want. We want to use the statistics stuff that we just entered in L1 and L2, and if I hit 9, or if I just were to scroll down and enter that, but just push 9 is all you need to do. Look what it does. Okay, it plots your data for you. Okay, so there's our distribution. Okay, just like we had yesterday. All right, so now the next step is we want to get a regression equation. Okay, the way you do that, you have to go back to the stat screen. Any questions so far? Good so far? Okay, so we're going to go back to the stat screen. I'm going to scoot over to, now see, these are all the different menus. This is the edit menu. I'm going to scoot over to the calc menu, the calculate menu. And then look, I've got a whole bunch of options available. Which one of those do you think is the one that I want? 4. Yeah, I want linear regression, don't I? Okay, so I'm going to either just, you know, I could just space down to 4 and hit enter, or I'll just type 4. And it does linear regression. Okay, so now it defaults to, what's the X list going to be? By default, it's L1. The Y list by default is L2. But if I wanted to have more control over that, what if I had a whole bunch of lists of data in there and I wanted to pick specifically like L1 for my X and L4 for my Y? I could go in here and do that. Okay? And you can see down here at the bottom, if I wanted to change that, and you're probably never going to, but down here at the bottom, behind the 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, you can see in blue it says L1, L2, L3. So I would just hit second. Like if I wanted to change that to L3, I would hit second 3, and it changes it to L3. Everybody see that? Okay. We don't want to do that though. We're going to leave it as L2. So second, L2. And then all I have to do is hit calculate, and it's going to give me all the regression information. Okay, there it is. Now, it's not showing me R squared. You will notice, though, that this is the same, these are the same numbers that we saw yesterday when we graphed this thing. We got look at these numbers, 0.183214 and 5.748943, blah, blah, blah. If I look on here, where was that? No, where the heck was it? Right there. Same numbers, right? Everybody agree? Same numbers? Even out to more places, though? Okay, but it's not showing me R squared. If yours is not showing you R squared, if it is, you're fine. If it's not, then you have to go into the mode of the calculator and turn that on. So I want to see the R squared. I want to see how good is the regression. So I have to go down to stat diagnostics. See, mine are turned off. I want to go down to the stat diagnostics, and I need to turn that on so it'll give me more information about my statistical fit there. So I hit enter to turn that on, and now I can go back to my previous screen. So if I hit quit, and I can just roll up to, I don't have to redo the whole thing. I can just roll up with the up arrow to that previous calculation and hit enter. And it does it again, but now it's telling me there's my R squared, so there's my 89.6% fit like we had yesterday, right? It's telling me the correlation coefficient R, that's the slope of my actually that's not true. It's not the slope of the line, it's, say it again. A is the slope, yeah. Yeah, this is something different. This is kind of like the strength of the correlation, but it's not as good as R squared. So R we won't really use. It's called the correlation coefficient. We don't really use it. We just focus on R squared. So for now you can just forget about R. Okay. All right, but there's one more thing we want to be able to do. We want to be able to use that model like we did in Desmos. Right now, if I go into graph, all it's showing me is the stat plot. Okay, but there is a way to push that regression model into Y1 so it becomes a function that we can graph and use. And here's how you do it. So we're going to go back to stat, calculate, and we'll go back to linear regression, number 4. Okay, here's the part that we need to use. We're going to go down to store regression equation. We want to store the regression equation as y1. So then I can just graph it. When I pull up y equals, it'll be waiting there for me so I can use the graph. The easiest way to do that is with a shortcut. If I hit alpha and I go up to F1, actually it's not F1, which one is it? It's F4, the y variables. So alpha F4, it shows me all the different y variables I could pick, and I would just type 1 to pick y1. Okay, if I forget about that, or for whatever reason, there's another way to get there. I could just go into math, numbers, oh, that's not it. Hang on. I think where that is. I haven't used that in so long. It's going to be under variable. Let me see variables. VARS on there anywhere? Let's see. There it is. VARS, variables. Okay. So I could push the variables button. I could scoot over to the Y variables menu and hit enter for a function and just pick Y1. Okay, but it's way easier just to hit alpha F4 and choose whatever Y variable you want. So now that I put a Y1 in there, if I go down and hit calculate again, I get the same information, but look what it did. If I go into Y equals, it plugged that in with huge accuracy. Look at how many decimal places it's taking the slope and the y-intercept to. So it's plugging that in for y1, and now if I go to the graph, there's my line, and I can use that line. So if I want to evaluate that function, I can do it a couple ways. I can go into, anytime I want to do something with a graph, I go second calc, and then I'd go to value for evaluate. And now I have to know which one am I plugging it into here. Am I plugging it into, let's see, like if I want to, hang on a sec, I got to go back. I got to go back one step here. Let's go graph. Okay, gosh, how's this working? I go second calc value. Oh, okay, yeah, and then I put a value in. Okay, so if I put a value in, like let's say I want to check this at, oh, we want to find a value at 14.5. So I'll type in 14.5 and I'll hit enter, and then it puts me right on the function there at 14.5. Okay, and it tells me what the coordinates are. X is 14.5 and it tells me the y coordinate. Okay, everybody see that? Okay, there's a shortcut for that. I know there's a lot of information, but I'm recording this. You can go back to this. If you've got a TI-84, hopefully you're getting most of this, but we'll do this many times. I just want you to see kind of basically how this works. I can also go back to the graph, and whenever you want to evaluate a function, there's a great shortcut you can use. You can just type trace and type in the number that you want, 14.5. Oh, hang on, I messed it up. I type trace. Oh, okay, yeah, when I type trace, it wants to know which function am I using. Well, right now it's on plot 1. I don't want plot 1. So I hit the up or down arrow to change between the different graphs. So I'm going to hit the down arrow until I get to Y1. Now I can do 14.5 and hit enter, and it puts me right back on there. Okay, so again, you can skip having to go through the whole menu. If I want to just plug a value into a function, I just hit trace, I go up or down until I pick the right graph, and that's the one I want, Y1, it puts the cursor on the line, and I type the value and hit enter, and it puts me right on the function. Okay? All right, so there was a question that we did yesterday. Last thing, and I'm going to let you guys work on this. there was a question where it asked us, right here, it wanted us to predict when the prices would first reach $100. Remember how we did that? We just graphed the horizontal line, y equals 100, and we intersected the lines. I can do that on here as well. So on here, I would just go up to y equals, I'm going to go down to y2, and I'm just going to type 100. And if I hit graph, I don't see it because it's way the heck up there, right? It's way up at 100. So if I want to see that intersection then, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to set the window to be much wider than it is. Like I'm going to go, I don't know how wide it's going to need to be, but I'm just going to go into the window and I'm going to let the x minimum be 0. So that's going to be where the left edge of the screen, where the x values start. And I'm going to put the x max value at, gosh, I don't know. I'm just going to try, like we know it was like over 500, but let's just put it in there at like 200 and just see what happens. If I go 0 to 200, that's what I'm setting the x values to be, okay? But I want to be able to see everything that's on the graph there. Everything that I've input into y equals, I want it to show up on my graph. If I set the x values and I'm going to let it choose the y values so I can see everything, I go zoom fit, which is the 10th option. It's zoom 0. I can either go down the menu till I get to it, or I could just type a 0. Now, look what it does. It shows me from 0 to 200, it shows me what the blue graph and the red graph and the data looks like. So I can see I've got to go out there much further, right? So I could go back to my window and set x max to be something like, well, let's just try something like 600. And again, I'll go zoom 0 so it fits, and now I can see the intersection right there. If I want to know where the intersection is, anything I want to do with the graph, I just go second, calc. Now, which of those options do I want if I want to find the intersection? What do you think? Which one? Number 5. Yeah, I want number 5. So I just type 5. It wants to know which two graphs am I intersecting? Which two curves? So it puts the cursor on the blue one, and up at the top it says Y1. It wants to know, is that the first curve? If it is, I just hit enter, and it is. Is that the second curve? Yes, it is. If it wasn't, I'd use the up or down arrow to switch to the one that I wanted, but it's correct. So I hit enter, and then it wants a guess. So if you have curves that intersect a lot of times, this is where you'd have to trace over or type a coordinate in to get close to the intersection, so the calculator knows which one you want. But these are lines. They only intersect once, so I don't even have to make a guess. There's no way you could mix up intersections. There's only one, so I can just hit enter, and look what it does. It tells me there's where the intersection is, and it gives me the coordinates. So there's where we got the 2000. That's the same thing we got yesterday, right? 514, so it would have been 2514 would have been the year where the prices were $100 based on our model. Okay? Who's got 84s again? Raise your hand if you got TI-84. Okay, few people. All right. All right, so hopefully you guys should definitely try doing at least one problem with your TI-84s, maybe one or two. Okay, and if you don't, like I say, if you don't have one, that's all right. I'll save this recording. You can come back to it when you get one and you want to know how to do this, or just come ask me. Okay, you can work. Try to get that assignment.